What is going on to the people on YouTube as well as the GamesDoneQuick submissions committee? This is the first of 3 videos I am making where I commentate different categories for my speed game, Ratchet Deadlocked. I will be doing the any percent and any percent no LC categories as well, but this first category is new game plus no LC. Now, the last time this category was shown off at a main GDQ event was in 2018, so you can imagine a lot has changed in those many years. But even in the past year since I've gotten this run, there's a few new strats that if this were to get into GDQ, you'd be seeing for the first time on that stage. You wouldn't be seeing them in this video because I hadn't done them yet. So, we got that out of the way. So, again, I said this is New Game Plus. I'll explain what load canceling is later. New Game Plus categories have pretty much always been the go-to for submitting to GDQ events for Ratchet and Clank games. These are very beloved categories, and this game is no different in that regard. So, let's start with the run. So first, I'm in third-person mode, but I instantly switch to lock strafe. And the reason I do this is because it skips a camera control tutorial where you're locked in place for about 20 seconds. So next up is this room where I just have to fight a few enemies, and afterwards I will be taken to the hub world known as the containment suite. And here is basically going to be just me using the charge boots. This is the main attraction of the game. It's what makes this speedrun so good. It's as easy as it looks. You press L2 twice and Ratchet will be propelled forward. And that's simple enough, gets you up to speed very quickly. But as you'll see very soon, the charge boots have a lot of unintended techniques that can really break the game in half. So first though, I have to explain this skip. So there's these 2 combat bots that accompany Ratchet throughout the adventure, Merc and Green, and there's a mechanic where if they take a lot of damage, they'll be knocked out and the player has to revive them by pressing down on the D-pad. But by skipping the first fight, we skip this cutscene from ever triggering, and it causes a weird interaction where jumping in the electric liquid at a certain spot warps us to the very end of the level, as you saw just now. I don't know how these 2 are linked, but I just know they are linked, and that's how you make it happen. So yeah, very broken first level. So now on to Catacrom 4, and I just want to take this quick moment to say that I really love the early game in this category. I've seen a lot of speed games where the early game is brutal, and some runners might not even enjoy it that much. You might be seeing like people talk about Reset Haven or something like that. But I really like the early game of this category. Like right here, look at this movement. So I had already swapped my weapons in the previous mission, and now I'm gonna access the end of this level from like a spot that I'm not supposed to. Saves about a second. Now right here, I'm going to do a frame perfect trick. So we have a few vehicles in this game, and sometimes the game will allow you to exit them just by pressing triangle, but in others, such as this one, you're not supposed to be able to do that no matter what you press. However, by restarting the mission, pressing triangle while holding right on the left analog stick, Ratchet can spawn outside of the Landstalker and we can traverse the challenge on foot. So yeah, it's a nice little 20 or so second time save. Now, Ratchet Deadlocked is known for its more complex combat compared to the previous titles with more engaging gameplay, and even the speedrun this reigns true. In previous Ratchet and Clank games, we do have arena fights, but it's not very complicated. You just select the best weapon and you just kind of fire it at the enemies. But here you can see things like me having to deploy certain mines to make sure that I can get enemies even if I'm not able to reach them on time. I have to pull out the fusion rifle to get a dropship. So yeah, even like in the combat sections of this game, you really can't let your guard down. So, onto Planet Serathos. And this is going to introduce 2 new pieces of tech. But first, I also have to explain something else. So if you get away from the bots, you basically start this 10-second respawn timer, where after 10 seconds they will show up next to you no matter what. And a lot of the way we do movement is centered around trying to make the most out of this 10-second respawn timer, trying to get there before it happens so that they can be there at the right time. And fortunately, I got the respawn cycle. I missed the mine clip there, but it only loses about a second, so it's not a big deal. Now this is one of the coolest pieces of movement we found in the game. So if you walk or charge into something that can damage Ratchet, he just starts gliding across the air like that. So that is called an air swing. That was discovered in 2023, and it was definitely a game changer. It added a whole new layer to the already slick movement of this game. And then here we have another technique. This is called a hyperstack. So this menu that you see me open with the controller on it, that menu is a camera control menu where you select, like, do you want to play in first person, log strafe, do you want to have an inverted camera, turn off the quick select pause maybe. So this menu automatically disables Ratchet's animations. It cancels them no matter what he's doing. And what we found out is Ratchet has this hyper strike animation. You press X and square and he'll kind of like swing his wrench and slam it on the ground. And he gains a tiny bit of height when he does this. So if you do a hyper strike and at the peak of the animation you go into camera controls menu, you don't even have to toggle anything. When you unpause, you can do another hyper strike, and you can just do that infinitely. So yet another game changer. You're gonna get to see its full potential near like the end game. Well, this is a quick little auto scroller. I just have to wait for these bots to hack the orbs before the King Leviathan pops out. I can pretty much do whatever I want here. I do make sure that the Leviathans aren't bothering my bots though, as they're hacking the orbs. So now, I just need to say that I've ran many Ratchet and Clank games, and I've seen a lot of cool planets with a lot of fun movement. This planet, Kronos, I think is like top 5 best planets for movement in any category I've ran. There's 7 missions and all of them are interesting. So starting off, we're going to do another air swing here to skip having to go around the long way. Saves a couple seconds. Something you may have noticed is that I was in first person for a little bit and I let a second enemy attack me. And the reason why is because the longer your air swings are is dependent on how much damage you take. So if I'd only taken the initial hit from that first enemy, I wouldn't have gotten a good air swing. It wouldn't have lasted very long and I wouldn't have been able to make it to the end. So some air swings you take more damage on purpose depending on how far you want to go. Now this is our first boss battle, Shellshock. We encounter him multiple times throughout this planet, so you'll see him again later. One thing I love about this mission though is that even though the focus is fighting Shellshock and some enemies, we use movement to get up on the arena walls so we can destroy some dropships sooner, making this mission more combat focused. So I really like that. Even like in the simplest of missions, we found a way to break it and make it like really fun to play through. So this is somewhat of an out of bounds. It's a bit weird because this area is an area that we explored in other missions, but we're not supposed to be able to use it in this specific mission. However, the devs never did any techniques where they deload it or anything like that, so it's always usable no matter what mission you're on. And we use this to save several minutes over having to go on a grind rail and go all over the city. Now right here, I'm doing a couple of hyperstacks, and the reason for that is because this elevator, you're supposed to destroy a few enemies to make it come down, but it will try and match Ratchet's height if it gets to a certain height. So yeah, we do that to lower the elevator and skip having to do all that. So you're seeing some cool movement here with the flail, known as a flail cancel. I will explain later on what a flail cancel is, because right now I'm gonna have to focus on like talking about the next mission. Again, there is so much to talk about in this game. There's barely any time to like say anything. That was the closest I've had to downtime in like a few minutes, and it doesn't even last that long. So now this is the second encounter with Shellshock. We shoot at him with the Supernova, the most powerful weapon in the game, although every weapon here is actually really powerful. We use all of the weapons in the speed run. One of them does technically have an optional use, but it's better to use it than to not use it. So now right here is one of my favorite missions due to the movement. So unfortunately in this run, I take a death because at the end I had a bit of a weird angle to finish my charge. And you're going to see right here, I'm going to try and save it and realize, you know what, it's just better to restart the mission. You can still make something out of it. Or no, wait, I didn't restart the mission, I just took the death. Okay, well, anyway, so what I'm going to do, flail cancel to get up on this wall, and then I'm going to charge all the way to the end of this platform. I have to land on a specific spot or else it's going to kill all of my charge boot speed. Then I do this again, I wrench swing in a diagonal direction, and then during the charge, I take out the fusion rifle. Now right here, there's this orange wall and then there's this floor which isn't like fully parallel to the wall. You can see right here that it's kind of diagonal. So there's a little spot where if I charge and then I cancel and I turn towards the middle, Ratchet will clip through. and then I have to hit that mine clip first try, or else I will not make the bot respawn cycle, and I'm going to lose over 10 seconds waiting on them to respawn. And also, Shell Shock has now been defeated. So yeah, very complicated but fun planet. And now onto Avenger Tournament. So the first mission is going to be a quick little arena, Manic Speed Demon, where I got to kill 60 enemies in about a minute and a half. So one important thing for Ratchet Deadlocked speedruns is of course memorizing where enemies spawn, as well as recognizing enemy patterns, because I will admit, I don't have every single spawn of every single arena memorized. For this one, I do know where they are, but for some of the later ones, I just kind of recognize patterns, and that's still able to get me top times in this game. And that's something I really like, is that you don't have to know this game like the back of your hand to get really good times, but it is still beneficial, so everyone wins. So now right here, I'm going to do another air swing. These green enemies, the tall ones, the tremors, there are two attacks that they can do. There's a ranged attack where they kind of slam the ground and some gray stuff comes out, and then there's a melee attack where they run towards Ratchet and kind of swing at him. It's a bit of an RNG thing. I want them to do the ranged attack because then I'll have to take less hits and I can initiate my air swing quicker. But of course I didn't get that because more often than not they will do the melee attack. But adapting to that is still something that's very important. You can't just, let your guard down because you didn't get the right attack. You gotta adapt. Now this is Climb the Tower of Power. So I'm going to do another air swing. So I've shown how air swings get you distance, but what about height? Well, right here, I'm going to start air swinging across this slope. And that's going to skip the entirety of the process of climbing the Tower of Power. You can see right there would have been several platforms I would have had to traverse. And this actually only saves 3 seconds to doing it optimally, but doing it optimally, like doing the climbing optimally, is still really difficult with some cycles that you'd have to make and some blind movement. So this is very much a welcome change. So yeah, that's what I consider the end of the early game, and there's just so much to talk about. I really love it. I've done so many attempts of this game, and it's because the early game is just like, it never gets old for me. Now this is the most difficult planet in the game. Lots of runs die here. This is Shar. It starts off with a simple movement mission. Right here, the trigger for the end of the level, I can just hit it from in the water. It extends just far enough. This mission is very notorious amongst anyone that has run this game. So I have to capture 4 bolt cranks, and I have my bots do it, although I could do it myself, but that would be slower. I'm going to clip into this room before I'm ever supposed to be able to come in here. I have to capture that node that you saw to the right first, but again, with the mines, I can just do it whenever I want. Now, this is the node where all of people's runs die. This is the most notorious one. Surrounding this node are multiple Landstalkers, 3 missile turrets, a bunch of Dreadzone bots, some dropships, some executioners. Look at this. I can't even move without taking a ton of damage. There's no room to breathe here. But thankfully I make it through just fine. So this is basically a simpler variation of the previous mission. You have to command the bots to hack more bolt cranks. So something I need to quickly explain, mine clips. So every Ratchet and Clank game has a weapon that deploys a projectile with its own hitbox, and we use that to clip out of bounds. Ratchet 1 has the decoys, Up Your Arsenal has the mega turrets, Into the Nexus has the nightmare box, and Deadlocked has the mines. Funny enough, we do have our own turret launcher, which you're seeing right here, but the turrets themselves don't have a hitbox. It's like they patched one method but accidentally created another. It's a bit funny. So yeah, so I make it through Shar. Very nice Shar. My gold here is a 147, and what am I gonna get here? Ooh, another. That was really close to golding. That was a fantastic Shar. Wow. I actually have not looked at these gold times since I'd done this run, so anyways, this is Orxon. So the first mission of Orxon, you have to pick between 2 paths, and they both just kind of loop around and connect back to each other. You're basically getting the same gameplay, it's just in a different order. Once you unlock one door, the other one becomes inaccessible unless it's from the other side. But by commanding the bots to hack both doors and then clipping in the way you saw just now, I'm able to bypass this kind of weird thing the game does to block out the door from being unlocked, and I'm able to mark the mission as complete. The second fastest strat would just be to do some hyper stacks, but obviously this is still quicker. So now this is node overload. A lot of runners are also known to struggle with this mission. Even here you see that I had a bit of a fluke. I just have to capture the 6 nodes, and each node is surrounded by some turrets. So I placed some mines near the turrets just to make sure that when the bots start turning the bolt cranks, they won't be like attacked or anything. It is possible to get far away from your bots as they turn bolt cranks, and that will cause any enemies nearby to just not attack or even despawn. I'm not really sure which one it is, I just know it works because I've done it in some other missions as well as a few other categories. But in this case, the map is not big enough for us to really implement that strategy. So this is Refinery Ambush. This is a quick little auto-scroller. I just have to command the bots to hack some orbs. So, and of course there are enemies attacking, but with all my really powerful weapons, that's not really a big deal. So, yeah, this is one of the only like downtimes where I don't have much to explain. So this would be like a time to read donations, I suppose, like one of 2 times that I can think of in the run. The next mission is Chains of Villainy. So there are these, I'm going to call them hot air balloons because that's what they resemble, and there are 4 of them connected to these red orbs. You're supposed to use the Landstalker to take them, but the game does allow you to traverse on foot, and as it turns out, the supernova is able to destroy the hot air balloons, so we take advantage of that. A little funny thing is the objective marker for the first hot air balloon doesn't like go away. They're marked with a blue star. It doesn't go away for that specific one for some reason, and it's only in this category. In the any percent categories, it does go away, so it's a funny little quirk. Now this is the Crusader Tournament. So after this, we're about halfway through the game. There are 16 levels in this game. So this is Static Death Trap. The gimmick with this mission is that you're only able to use the mine launcher, and I guess the wrench, although it's not very useful. So one thing that you noticed just now is I seem to have thrown out 2 mines in random spots, and this is because I'm preparing for later rounds. So round 1 and 2, I know that the enemies spawn in these areas. I don't have the spawns memorized, but that's not really important because as long as you recognize the patterns, you can still achieve good times here. The mine got stuck on the wall. I've never noticed that. Round 3, I know that 4 turrets will spawn around all 4 sides of the arena, which is why I have those mines prepared. Round 4, I now know that it's this wall and this wall where the enemies will spawn from, so I have my mines prepared. I do need to be a bit careful with how many mines I place, because you're only able to have like 7 on screen at a time, I believe, and also because the mine ammo does refill, as you can see, but it refills way slower than I use it. Round 5, all of the enemies surround Ratchet, so you just spin in a circle. So this is Marathon. This is yet another mission where you turn the bolt cranks. So something that I didn't point out was at the end of Oryxon, as I fired the supernova for the last time, I quickly swapped weapons to the Vulcan cannon, and that's because I need it for this mission, something that's really important in this game. So this series has a mechanic where you can swap between the last 2 weapons that you equip. However, in Deadlocked, it's actually the last 3 weapons. So an important part of speedruns of this game is weapon management. You have to think, okay, what weapon am I about to overwrite? What order should I equip my weapon so that I can do certain techniques? This is also a very important part of Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal speedruns. And when I was getting like good times in that game, one of the things that helped me get ahead of the competition was my weapon management. Right there, that was Reactor. I fired the supernova out of a flail cancel, and I spammed the wrench, and it just instantly defeated him. And again, I was setting up the weapons like beforehand, so weapon management in those 2 games is really important. One of the most valuable skills a runner can have. So this is the Valix Belt. This is the first mission. So we do an air swing here, but this dropship has a tendency to target the combat bots instead of Ratchet. But the way to avoid this is by staying really close to the ledge so that when it comes out, it'll see Ratchet first and it'll know, okay, let's take down Ratchet. But then this actually creates a little bit of a conflict, because if you don't get the charge for too long, if you like charge and it gets interrupted, you won't get a good air swing. It won't last very long. So it creates this little balanced like decision making where you think, okay, I need to get close enough to make the dropship target me, but I also need to make sure that I can get some distance once I know it's targeting me so that I can charge long enough to get a good air swing. So this is Space Ace. This is just a hover ship mission. So I'm just going to quickly explain flail cancels as well as end lag cancels. So the Leviathan flail, apart from being a really sick weapon, you press R1 or circle to like swing it in the air and slam it on the ground. You can use the charge boots and kind of turn Ratchet's direction by swinging the flail. So if you'll go like this, for example, you can just swing the flail and make it go like that way. But another technique that we use, somewhat similar, is if I'm charging and I press the fire button, like as I said before, R1 or circle, at the same time as the quick select button, which is R2 or triangle. I use R1 or R2, that's what's most comfortable for me. If you press these two at the same time, the flail animation will be canceled and you can do moves with the charge boot speed. So you can cross longer distances, you can get up higher areas like those walls on Kronos. Even with tiny amounts of space, you're still able to do a flail cancel, and you actually saw that on Kronos and on Climb the Tower of Power. Similarly, an end lag cancel is a technique where I use, this does not work with R2, you have to use triangle. I open triangle during a charge, and I let go when the charge ends. For some reason, this still has the same effect as a flail cancel, and it's useful in case I can't have the flail out in the moment, or if it's a charge that I don't need to cancel prematurely. Right here, I'm just clipping through some walls with the mines. I'm actually facing forward to do this. For a lot of mine clips, I face to the side, but here it's a little faster to do them facing forward. So now this is the coolest air swing in the game. So first, I'm going to destroy this dropship because it'll make these enemies spawn, and I want them to spawn. I want as many enemies firing at me to guarantee that I take damage quickly. And now, look at this. So over to your left, there's a couple asteroids that you're seeing. These would have some platforming, some swing shots, some enemies, a few other things. But with this air swing, we skip all of it. And we have a little slope at this final asteroid, which is how we're going to be able to get on top of it without having to do extra hyperstacks. Because if we had to do hyperstacks, then this wouldn't actually be so fast. And then right here, I turn the bolt crank as Ratchet after defeating these enemies. And with that, that is the Valix Belt. So yeah, this is another one of my favorite splits in the game. I know my friend Marathon Man would say this is his favorite split in the game. And yeah, it's really sick. I really love seeing how it's evolved over the years. So this is Planet Torval. So 3 out of the 4 missions are really basic missions, but the second one has a very interesting strat. So the first mission, let's get to that first. I have to hack some orbs like usual, but this time I can't hack them unless I expose them by destroying these Landstalker tanks. Now, if you are too far away from the bots, even if they finish hacking, the game will not register it as complete, so you're going to see me do a little bit of walking. You're going to see that I'm not like in a rush necessarily. I'm kind of waiting around a little, and that's just to be sure that yes, we have hacked the orbs. Now right here I have the silencer. So this next mission, I have to chase 12 drones on a hover bike. However, the strat that we do here makes it so much quicker. So I restart the mission, I destroyed the first drone, and now I'm going to hop on this spot right here, and I'm going to fire a silencer shot. That's going to wipe out 5 of the drones. And then right here, if you saw in the bottom right, there was the blue stars kind of just spawned in. That's because I know where the trigger is to make the second set of drones spawn. So what I do is I walk backwards, and just as I'm about to hit the trigger, I fire the silencer, so when the drones spawn in, they are instantly destroyed. So that's a very tough strat to master. I see a lot of newcomers struggle with it a lot, and even I sometimes have trouble with it, but it's very much a worthwhile strat to go for. It's the best strat. All of the other strats are too slow or too inconsistent. This one is 100% consistent. It's just really difficult to go through. This is just a very basic mission. Something I wanted to do is, if you are familiar with speedruns of the Sly games, the PS1 Spyros, Jak 3, you may have heard of a proxy, which is kind of a super jump, like a super high jump. I was actually able to get a proxy by landing the hover bike on the turret there. In this run, I didn't get it, but it is something I attempted. In my ILPB of that mission, I do get it, and it looks really sick. So right here is just a super basic mission. I just have to command the bots to place 4 explosives on this statue of Ace Hardlight, and then afterwards I'll just have to wait around for about 15 seconds, and thankfully you can just quickly go AFK. So this would be another time to like read a donation or two. So I'm gonna just skip ahead a little bit so I can just get to explaining the Vindicator tournament. So the Vindicator Tournament is really starts off with a really interesting mission. So it starts with a weapon cycling round, which is a gimmick that's been done in other Ratchet and Clank games. But the difference in this one is that I already know what weapons I'm gonna get. I know that on round 3 I will get the Stalker Mines, then I will get the Vulcan Cannon, then the Silencer, and we use this to our advantage. So we already know what techniques we're gonna do to defeat the enemies. But right here, I'm actually gonna place the mines in a specific spot. And the reason for this is because the final round, there's going to be 3 Executioners, which are these super powerful and strong enemies, and I only have the dual Raptors to defeat them with. The mines don't despawn just by the rounds advancing, so something I can use to my advantage is those mines can attack the Executioners if they manage to stay around for long enough. So this is kind of the big auto-scroller of the game. This is airdrop. It's kind of like a little meme IL. For 2 minutes and 16 seconds, you have to avoid this wave of bombs that are being dropped on Ratchet. But we can just go out of bounds and remain AFK for that entire time. So I was actually planning on using this to do a dono goal. So I actually had 2 donation goals in mind. And this would be the spot for me to do them in. However, obviously I'm not going to show them off right now because it's not necessary. So I'm just going to skip ahead to the Eviscerator. Alright, so the Eviscerator fight. So this is as easy as it looks. You just spam the Supernova. He has a shield, but it is able to be penetrated from the top. So we just use that and make quick work of him. And now we have unlocked 2 planets, Stygia and Maraxus. One of them is notoriously difficult for many runners, and the other is really easy and has some fun movement. So, starting off with the harder of the 2, Stygia. The reason why so many people consider this difficult is mainly within this first mission, junking the jammers. So we have to use the Landstalker to destroy these orange jammers, and that sounds easy, except for the fact that there are a lot of enemies. Like, look at all this, there's barely any time to breathe. Now for me, this mission is no longer much of a struggle, and the reason why, one of the main reasons, is because for one, I've been able to optimize my movement and how I weave through these enemies, but 2, because there are a lot of health crates throughout the level, and making sure that you break those will regenerate like a ton of your health. Like, let's see, right here, this is going to take me like full health. This turret right here, I'm going to use an EMP on it to make sure that it can't bother me any longer. And using the splash damage of the Landstalker's mortars, I will be destroying the final jammer. So right here you can see I'm targeting them directly. This one I won't be doing that. I'm just going to rely on the splash damage, and I'm going to know that it works. So this is Energy Collector. This is yet another standard turn all the bolt cranks mission. So I do some camera movement there in order to manipulate the movement of the bot and make sure that it doesn't accidentally get stuck under the platform. Here I do a little flail cancel because otherwise I'd have to have a bot pull out a gadget, and they can't do that because they're too busy turning the bolt cranks. Now right here I did everything correctly, as shown by the fact that only 1 star remains on the minimap, as well as the fact that there was that bot right there. So turn the final bolt crank, and the next mission is a little bit of a complicated one. So there's a strat that I want to pull off, and it saves about 15 to 20 seconds. This is the only mission where you never have to command the bots to hack the orbs, and we use this to our advantage because we can get like a weird interaction out of it. So if I regroup the bots by pressing down at a specific time, only 1 bot will start hacking the orb, and then I can command the other one to hack it whenever I want. And the reason this is important is because this is a triangular platform. So let's say I start like right here, and the bots start hacking from this corner. Well, they're gonna go alongside each other. But with the strat that I'm attempting to do, they will actually go in this formation. They'll kind of split off into different paths, and that saves like 15 seconds. So I don't hit it in this run, unfortunately, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's like, you know what, I can still PB with this. But it is a very important strat to practice, and it's not like that difficult, but it is easy to mess up, and it's very punishing if you do. And considering that's at the end of the game, yeah, you can see why this might be a strat that some newcomers might not even want to learn. But of course, I want to go for like some of the fastest and easiest time saves that I can find. So this is the final mission. This is just a quick little arena fight. This is one of the few uses of the B11 Vaporizer, which is a grenade launcher. Right there, the bot took care of that enemy. I'm firing the silencer at a specific spot and the splash damage will destroy the dropships as they spawn in. So now on to Maraxus. This is one of the sickest levels in the game. It's so short, but every second of it is actually fun. So first is a mechanic that every Ratchet and Clank game has, where the developers put the end of the level near the beginning, so I can just easily skip the entire thing. Right here, I'm doing what is called a wrench SI. SI stands for slope intercept, and it refers to techniques used to scale sloped surfaces. So in the case of a wrench SI, I swing the wrench and I can scale the sloped surface. With that, I managed to skip the entire level. I would have otherwise had to go through a few corridors and fight a few enemies, but this saves like, I want to say maybe like 50 seconds, close to a minute. So right here's another turn to bolt crank mission. This planet has a gimmick where both of our bots have been placed in prisons. And you do see that I have the first bot with me. I never actually freed it because you're supposed to free it in the first mission. But if you complete the first mission, the game just gives it to you anyways. It's like, you did it right. So right here, I'm just kind of charging around the map. It's faster to use the charge boots as opposed to the Puma, which is the name of that vehicle that I was using. Right here, I'm going to try and clip through the wall. The trigger isn't active until all the bolt cranks are turned, but I want to be there as quickly as possible so that I'm ready and I minimize my time spent getting to the trigger. Right here, I clip through 2 walls. This again saves a load of time because otherwise I'd have to like go through a few different corridors. There'd be a landstalker turret I'd have to avoid. Right there, I made the respawn cycle so the bot had the grind cable ready to go. So this is where I'm supposed to free the second bot, and you're supposed to stand on a button and fight a bunch of enemies, but the end of level trigger is always active no matter what, so we can just clip through the final wall and we finish Maraxus. So now onto the Liberator Tournament. So this is the final tournament of the game. This is where we fight the 4th boss battle, Ace Hardlight. So the very first mission of the Liberator Tournament is another cycling weapons round. However, this time instead of 6 weapons, we only cycle through 2, that being the Silencer and B11 Vaporizer. And this, in my opinion, is one of the most fun arenas in the game. So rounds 1 and 3 are a bit random and weird with where the enemies spawn, but round 2 and 4 have a much easier to recognize pattern. So using the minimap, I managed to get through round 1 and 3. For round 2, I'm trying to do a thing where I group up the swarmers together in order to destroy them a little bit quicker. Right there was one swarmer right there. I got rid of it. Right there, I'm waiting for all of them to spawn. And now for round 3. So once again, I'm kind of recognizing certain patterns with how they spawn, but it's not like a super consistent pattern. It's one that's, you just have to play through a bunch just to memorize it. But thankfully, using the mini-map on the bottom right, I'm able to get by just fine. Now round 4 is going to have the enemies spawning in a counterclockwise rotation, and thanks to the amount of alpha mods, which are basically things that change a few things about the weapon like ammo count, how fast it fires. In this case, I've applied a bunch of area mods to increase the area of effect, and you can see I fired like a bomb on like one corner, but on like the other side of the arena the enemies were still taken out by it. That's how powerful our B11 is because of the alpha mods. So there's 2 types of mods. There's omega mods and alpha mods. So alpha mods kind of change like statistics of a weapon, and each weapon has a very specific set of alpha mods. Some of them are kind of interchangeable. You can like kind of afford to get rid of one in order to make room for another without really affecting your time save in a run. But others, we just spam the same type of mod the entire weapon. So for explosives, we kind of use like area mods. By the way, I actually took a moment here to swap to the Supernova and the Flail. This is Ace Hardlight. So I hit him 3 times with the Flail. I fired a Supernova, and just to be safe, I fired a Flail 1 more time. So I have to be sure that I'm a certain distance away from Ace Hardlight because I can't rely on splash damage, or else I will not be able to pull off the strat correctly because he won't take as much damage. I'll have to do more Flail swings, and it's going to just really mess me up. So this is the Ghost Station. This is one of the best levels in the game. This movement is so sick. So right here, we're going to hit the trigger from underneath the platform just by doing 2 hyper stacks. And of course, as I said before, the end of the level is right at the beginning. And then here, I'm going to do 1 final air swing. So this air swing is actually not done off of an enemy, but rather off of an explosive barrel. So I did fluke it there, but I tried again. I used a fusion rifle for this because it's a little more consistent with making the barrel explode compared to the Vulcan cannon. And this air swing is barely enough to make it to the ledge. You actually saw that it kind of looked like Ratchet was descending for like a quarter of a second. That's because the air swing timer was already kind of running out. So thankfully it gives us just the right amount of distance that we need to make it to that platform. Right here I use the mines to clip through 2 walls, and then I have to destroy 5 computers in the final room of this mission. So I used the silencer to destroy the first 4, and I used the fusion rifle to destroy the final one, which is far away. And now finally, we have escape. So in the lore, the concept behind this mission is that we are destroying the ghost station. There are 33 power nodules, which are these green blocks, and there are 9 Landstalker turrets scattered around the station, and we have to destroy all of them in order to take it down. We unfortunately don't get to see a cutscene of it happening, but I do just really like the aesthetic of the mission, the music, the sense of finality, of course the color scheme, and this is a really fun mission to play through. This is my favorite vehicle level in the game. I don't know how other runners feel about the vehicle levels, but I actually really like a lot of them, and this is my favorite one. It's really fun to optimize. The route is pretty cool that we've come up with. This part right here, the game actually lags a little bit. The PlayStation 3 ports of the Ratchet & Clank original quadrilogy are faster because of the loading times, but there are some disadvantages they have, such as extra lag that was not present on the original PlayStation 2 version. So we got rid of all the power nodules, and now it's time for the final few Landstalker turrets. And now we're going to the final level, Dreadzone Station interior. So we're going to blow up the entire Dreadzone Station. There are 3 generators that we need to access. There is an east generator, a west generator, and a central core. And afterwards, we're going to fight Gleam and Vox, the final boss of the game. So, the very first mission, you basically, for this entire level, you have to go through a bunch of corridors fighting enemies. There's a bit of platforming and a few obstacles. For this first one, we're going to skip it by just doing this wrench SI, and there's a spot in this sloped wall with no collision. So I'm going to jump through, and I'm just going to start a series of hyperstack chains. The east generator is right there, so I can just bypass everything. Now, something that is really nice about these strats that we've come up with is when you enter the rooms with the generators are supposed to have some lasers coming out of the top of them. You're going to see like these little claws where a laser should be coming out of, and a ton of enemies should be spawning, trying to make sure that we cannot place explosives on here. But because of these strats we never enter the rooms through the intended method, so we never trigger these lasers or these enemies. So it allows us to just do our business peacefully. So right there I had a tiny little fluke. I'm trying to turn the camera in a specific way whenever it's time to command the bots to place their second round of explosives, so that way the bots will go to whichever spot is closest to them for placing explosives. So in this one they went to the further one. It's not the biggest deal because I managed to save it. This is the hardest mine clip in the game. So if you try and mine clip in an area you're not supposed to be in, like not one that's ever accessed, even in other missions, the game will just instantly kill you. So right here we have to clip in a very specific way, but this saves 10 seconds, so it's very worthwhile to go for. Now here I'm going to do a wrench aside and get on top of this gate. There's nothing that prevents me from ever standing on top of this gate, and I can just charge into the final room. So I'm going to do a couple hyperstacks. So apart from gaining height, hyperstacks are really good for maintaining your charge boost speed. So even across long distances. So this is round 1 of the explosives placed, and then we're going to go to round 2. One thing that I do like about the fact that you have to wait a little bit is the fact that obviously, like, since you're just going to spawn, like the next mission you're going to spawn in the same area, you can technically practice strats for the next mission while you wait for the bots to plant their bombs. So I didn't need to do it here because I was confident that I could hit the strat. I didn't feel a need to practice. So what you're going to do, you're going to see me right here. I'm going to do something similar to a wrench SI, but now I'm going to use a flail cancel where I use the wrench instead of a weapon to cancel it, and it's going to allow me to slide up. Then I'm going to land on a wire, turn around, and equip a weapon that Ratchet holds with 2 hands, kind of like this. And as a result, that's going to jam his hitbox through the wire, and I can just clip into that room with the Landstalker turret, and that saves like a ton of time. And it's a lot easier than the second fastest strat. So right here, this is the one time we do actually have enemies in the room. there's an enemy firing at me on the turret. If I were to defeat him, a bunch more would spawn, and that would not be good. So I just let him fire at me. It's like I have a lot of health. I can tank this whole thing. And now we're coming up onto time very soon. So this is the Gleeman Vox, and he's going to be really easy to take down. So we spawn in. I charge. I fired a Supernova. I use the Ravager, which is the bot's special ultimate weapon, and I spam the Leviathan Flail. Now he's completely drained of all his health, although he is scripted to still go to phase 2. So all we have to do is just fire the dual Raptors, and with that we end the run the same way we started it. And time. So yeah, that is a 4108. At the time that this was achieved, this was actually 3rd place, although a few people have overtaken me since then. But it's okay, because when I come back to this category, I will be going for sub 40, something not many people have been able to do. I might even go for something even further. So, as I said before, the last time this category was seen at a main GDQ event was 2018, although I did run this for a GDQ hotfix. That was very fun. Shout out to the hotfix organizers for that. And to the GamesDoneQuick submissions committee, I thank you for considering Ratchet Deadlocked, and I hope to see you on the big stage, because I would really like to show this game off again. I think this game deserves a comeback, and I think I could put on a really great show. So, and also, by the way, just to clarify, if you decide to watch the other 2 submission videos, you do not need to have watched this one to understand anything from those. I'll explain all the mechanics all over again. So, I probably should have said that at the start of the video, but it's okay. So yeah, I'd like to see you guys on the big stage, and peace out.